All right, gang, I am on my way to the opening evening 8 p.m. show of The Legend of Tarzan. It stars Alexander Skarsgård as the titular character. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been told by many a woman that the Skarsgård is a bit of all right. I don't see it. I honestly don't see it. I mean, look at the guy. That body, that's positively swollen. I think that's a medical condition. He may want to look into that. Personally, I'd prescribe an Advil every 4 hours for that. The film also stars Margot Robbie. You know, she's kind of, sort of, modestly okay looking, I guess. Anyway, on to the movie. Hello. All right, gang, I just got out of The Legend of Tarzan, which, of course, just to remind you, starred the unhealthily swollen Alexander Skarsgård. Interesting, like, I was kind of expecting, maybe wrongfully and naively so, but I was expecting The Legend of Tarzan to be sort of an origin film, like sort of maybe like Tarzan Begins, but it's not really an origin film at all. It really tells an established story with the character, with flashbacks sprinkled in throughout the narrative to kind of tell you how he evolved into the Tarzan that we all kind of know. It's set in the 1880s, and basically the Tarzan that we have all grown up knowing and I guess loving, he really begins his film not as Tarzan but as the Lord of Greystoke. He is John Clayton III, and he has long since abandoned his jungle adventuring ways to live the life of a lord in England with his wife Jane, who's played by Margot Robbie. Focus, Craig. Okay, so there's a whole other subplot in the film which involves the colonization of the Congo, the African Congo. And the King of Belgium has basically been trying to pillage the Congo for everything it's been worth, and he's essentially bankrupted his country. And he's at his political and financial wit's end. So he decides that he needs to send in his chief right-hand man, a guy named Rom, who's played by Christoph Waltz. And so Christoph Waltz goes into the Congo, and he's a fairly ruthless businessman that is willing to go to any lengths to negotiate with this very fierce African warlord chief who's played by Djimon Hounsou, a very strong and empowered actor who I'm really starting to think is really getting typecast in these types of roles. This chief really has it out for Tarzan. He basically wants Tarzan dead, so he conspires with Rom. If he can get Tarzan to him, he will give Rom and Belgium all the diamonds and riches that he wants, because he's basically sitting on a deposit of them. So Rom makes it his mission to essentially kidnap Jane, lure Tarzan in, and of course the plot thickens. I guess we need to talk about, is Tarzan a relevant character for modern day consumption? I don't know, and I think the real problem with this film is it really has a difficult time dealing with that. There's this whole notion that of, you know, a colonial white savior that basically, and Tarzan basically was that he was a white colonial who basically was adopted by African guerrillas and then left Africa and became a white aristocrat, and now he is going back to Africa in order to save the natives from evil. And you know, there's a whole white savior complex angle that I think the film is trying to maybe subvert, but maybe not altogether successfully. So I think ultimately Skarsgård, he certainly physically looks the part, there's absolutely no question. He has this really peculiar British accent. He almost sounds a little bit like Marlon Brando's Jor-El from the first Superman. I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first.
You will need that advantage to survive.
He is an invigorating and empowered physical presence in the film. He doesn't have a lot of inherent charm or charisma as Tarzan. I also never gained the impression that he was really having fun playing the part. He postures and he models really well, but beyond that, he's kind of a blank slate as a character. Jane is also a problematic character. I really appreciate Margot Robbie. I think her beauty allows for people to really overlook the fact that she's a very strong and compelling actress. I mean, just look at her resume and it's proof positive of that. She might be miscast as Jane. She too has this really peculiar American accent, and she feels like her performance and maybe the writing of the film is trying to circumnavigate around damsel in distress genre tropes by being really feisty and combative. But when all is said and done, she's basically just a damn damsel in distress that propels the plot in motion. So she's really just a lame plot device in this film. Ultimately too, Jane and Tarzan, they don't really have very good chemistry in the film. And even though they're played by good actors like Skarsgård and Robbie, I never felt this emotional connection between the characters. So when Jane becomes in peril, I never felt for her, and I never felt that unspoken loving bond and that lifelong relationship that the two characters had. And I think that just kind of hurts the film overall as well. So Christoph Waltz is capable of being as sinister of a villain as anyone on screen. But I mean, he's really not given that much to do in the film, and you know, there's something about him being like good directors bringing out the very best in Christoph Waltz. When he's not working with, like, say, directors like Tarantino, his performances are either just really broad and over the top, or sometimes they're even hard to swallow. And not that David Yates, who directed this film, is a terrible director, but I'm not sure if he really harnesses Christoph Waltz to his maximum potential. And then there's a sidekick character played by Samuel L. Jackson, George Washington Wallace, I think his name was. I might be incorrect on that, but he plays an American diplomat who journeys to London to convince Tarzan of his mission with the Belgians. And I think his performance and the whole character was ridiculously anachronistic. I never once believed that, you know, considering the fact that this film is trying to ground itself in sort of a historical veracity, it never once feels plausible that the President of the United States would actually send an African diplomat, especially considering the racially divided times he lived in. So that didn't really feel credible. And even though Samuel L. Jackson provides a lot of much needed comic relief in this film, it's like he walked off of the set of another film set in the modern age, and it's just, its performance is fun yet distracting. It's really hard to describe. And then there's the visual effects of this film. This film cost nearly $200 million to make, and it rarely ever feels like the budget is on screen. The visual effects work that are used to create the jungle animals and the environments, they range from being either mediocre to acceptable. I mean, they are a far cry away from the bravura and incredible visual effects work that was done recently in The Jungle Book, or even recent films that try to create digital apes like the Planet of the Apes rebooted films. Hell, the ape special effects in Peter Jackson's King Kong from 11 years ago are better than what's on display here. And then when Tarzan starts zipping around on jungle vines, it's so horrendously artificial and fake, and it just takes you right out of the movie. This film could also really benefit from some natural location shooting. I never once gained the impression that it was actually filmed in a jungle or filmed on location. It's they rely way too heavily on visual effects, and David Yates is a good director. He directed some of the previous Harry Potter films, and he's adept at, I think, harnessing this material, but I think he just kind of loses his way. I don't know if I can say I was truly disappointed in Tarzan, because I went in with very low expectations, and I guess the film didn't fail to deliver, but I certainly think that there's a lot more that could have been done with this character. I also, even though I'm starting to despise the trend of origin films overall, I would have welcomed an origin film, and I just unfortunately didn't get that. And yeah, I just think it was a colossal waste of $160+ million for all involved. So anyway, that's my take on The Legend of Tarzan. Let me know what you think of the film in the comments. Let me know what you think of the films of Alexander Skarsgård or Margot Robbie or Christoph Waltz or Samuel L. Jackson. Let me know what your favorite Tarzan film is. I think my favorite one still remains the Disney one, the animated film from many years ago. And please don't forget to like this video, and if you can, please subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate it. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the movies, everybody. And don't mind me, because I'm going to spend the rest of my drive home fantasizing about Margot Robbie.